the Royal Blue Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Royal Blue Podcast. I'm Phil Kirkbride and today joined by Gav Buckland and Adam Jones as we chew the fat over all the major talking points at Goodiosn Park, but of course focusing today on last night's game, last night's draw that should have been a victory but ended up being all square and a quite remarkable finish to the game. There was stunned silence for many inside Goodiosn, but unfortunately we have to talk about it and we have to try and make sense of what was a quite astonishing finale to a game that Everton had been fully in control of and cruising towards an impressive 3 points. So we will divide this podcast into the first to the 94th minute and then the 94th to the 95th. And of course, we will talk about Moise Kean, a few others. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, of course, into double figures for the league this season, and take the conversation from there. So let's start on what is a wholly positive discussion, Gav. First minute to the 94th. Tell me about Everton's performance.
Excellent. I mean, as good as what we played at home, certainly, for a long time. Winning our personal battles, plenty of strength. A lot of imagination in the final third, I thought. First 20 minutes of the second half, where our two sort of wide players sort of played as two inside forwards, so we were effectively playing 4-2-2-2. Give us a lot more creativity in the middle. And in the first half, we were good out wide on the left-hand side in particular. And all in all, it was a pretty comprehensive performance, of which, dare I say, Newcastle, I think I saw something after 80 minutes, they'd had 2 shots and we'd had 17, which speaks volumes. So after 94 minutes, thinking, solid win, into the battle now for Europa League places in the mix. And then, 60 seconds is a long time in football, isn't it? We found out. So it was very disappointing, but we can't take away. In looking at the game and the rest of the season, we can't just focus on the 60 seconds. It's quite right that we focus on the 94 minutes that went before then, which I thought we were excellent and thoroughly deserving of a 2-0 lead, probably more.
And Adam, there was definitely a school of thought afterwards, wasn't there, that the first 94 minutes of the game, if you like, and that performance was up there with as good as we've played this season?
Yeah, I'd say probably. The closest we probably came was that 2-0 win over West Ham. It was all the way back in September. It feels like a lifetime ago. But it was only back in September. And I think it was right up there. I think I fully agree with what Gav said there. I think it was the imagination in the final third that looked a lot better, especially Bernard cutting in on from that left flank. Looked so dangerous, dropping in between the lines, as we saw him doing against Brighton, of course, to a lot of effect as well. And, Ancelotti spoke after the West Ham game. He said, he wanted to see his side be more brave. They were too shy in the first half. He wanted to see them playing more vertically, whatever that meant. But
we deciphered that as direct.
That's direct, yeah.
But I think he definitely saw the fruits of that. Against Newcastle, I think we were more direct. I think we were a lot more brave on the ball. We were attempting more dribbles. We were attempting to be that little bit more creative in the final third. And it was coming off, We even had a couple of chances in the second half. Mason Holgate had a chance. Calvert-Lewin hit the post, didn't he? Yeah. Bernard lifted one just over the bar. But to be honest, there was no point in when we were missing those chances where I was thinking, these might come back to bite us. But, I've never seen a more routine 2-0 home win, and then the last minute happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, Yari Bernard had the opportunity, didn't he, in the second half, and Bernard is, we spoke about him on Friday, that he's far more suited, obviously, to 4-4-2 rather than 4-2-3-1, when he's playing further up the pitch and he's got less space to operate and less opportunity to move inside. In 4-4-2, he's playing maybe 20 yards further back down the pitch, and therefore he's got more space to operate in, and he's got more space to move on the inside. I mean, that first goal, and we'll talk about Moise Kean later, I'm not sure he'd be in that position in a 4-2-3-1.
Yes, yeah, that would have been where the number 10 would be.
Yeah. He would have been where 6 would have been.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, he's playing left-hand side of midfield, but it allows him to move inside to like a number 10 position. And you get the best out of him, really, I think, in that role. And I thought we played really well. And can you say? You can't say a lot. It was as Adam said, routine.
Yeah.
But I'd say we played better against West Ham because West Ham were poor when they contributed to that poor perform. That game being 2-0. But I've not seen Newcastle this season. I'm not sure that they were that poor last night compared to how they played previously. I just think that we were a class, a level above them. I mean, that pass, some of the passing moves, the one where Bernard chipped it over the bar or whatever, that was a great move.
Sidibe into Kean, Kean to Walcott.
Yeah, and there was 3 or 4 like that in the second half in particular, and on occasion in the first half on the left-hand side. And you can't complain when you're seeing that type of football.
Well, just rowing back a little bit and going back to Monday's press conference that you were there. What did you make of Carlo's comments about style? And obviously you mentioned play more vertical, but what about in particular? He made it quite clear. I thought it was the most articulate sort of representation and explanation of his vision, if you like. Sort of saying he's not bothered about possession. Do you think maybe on some level? I mean, obviously he's obviously a hugely experienced, well-skilled manager who has his own thoughts and methods, but obviously, do you think at some point he's looked maybe, and we have to admit this is, that because they are currently the best team in the country, the way Liverpool play, they don't play possession football. They're very direct. They play a lot of long passes very effectively. Do you think maybe that's there's almost a shift in the way that some managers now looking at football, and that's partly why Carlo wants us to play that way?
I think that probably plays into the thinking because, you can't have a team being so good as Liverpool are. And I think Man City do it on occasion as well, just the way they can tear through teams with pace. You can't have that system being so successful without some of the world's best managers picking up on it and thinking, yeah, maybe I can utilise this a little bit. But Carlo had Liverpool's number before he came here.
Yeah.
He'd beaten them with Napoli before he came here,
yeah.
so he knows how to break down that sort of system as well. And he's he's clearly just such an intelligent man. Like, as you say, like his description of how he wanted Everton to play was so articulate, and I think he was maybe just assessing the kind of limitations that he's got with this squad at the minute, not just in terms of the technical ability of some of the players that we've got, but the kind of injury issues that we've got as well. And there's always going to be, whenever a new manager comes in, there's always going to be some sort of grace period before their style gets really introduced into the team.
And sorry to interrupt, do we also think that when he's looked at the forward options and he's looked at Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Moise Kean, and he's gone young, loads of potential, but what are they good at? They're quick, they're strong, they're athletic.
Energetic.
Yes. And so you try and turn teams rather than necessarily playing intricate football. You turn them quickly.
Well, yeah, essentially, if you're playing the ball round the back, then those kind of players aren't getting the ball, and at the minute they are proven to be our best players. Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, especially over the last few weeks. It's no surprise that they're the ones who've scored the bulk of the goals while Ancelotti's been here. Until Kean bagged his one yesterday. So if we are messing about with it at the back a little bit too much, then ultimately you're starving those kind of players of the service that they need. And we all know the kind of limitations that Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison have as well. They're not clinical enough to be taking every single chance that comes to them yet. Hopefully they will be in the future, but they're not quite there yet. So we need to create as many chances for them as we possibly can. And, especially against West Ham, that really just wasn't happening. I think, the only chance that I can remember Calvert-Lewin having was the one that he ended up scoring. So, he does just need that kind of service. I thought, what impressed me most about Calvert-Lewin yesterday was the one that he scored yesterday. That wasn't an easy chance for him to take it all. It's such a good finish, swept in with his wrong foot past, a goalkeeper who had a really good game, I thought.
He always has a good game against us.
Yeah. So, you have just got to get the ball forward to these players as much as possible. And I think we did, if you look at the West Ham game and the Newcastle game, in isolation, I think we did see a marked improvement in terms of the kind of quality of chances we were creating for the two strikers.
What do we? So let's retain the positivity and focus on what was really good about last night. Gav, describe to me how impressed you were with Moise Kean's performance. Not just the fact that he scored as a centre forward, and you want that, but his performance overall. Perhaps for people who haven't had the opportunity to have seen the game, or maybe weren't there, or haven't had the chance to see extended highlights, tell them about about Moise Kean being, for me, showing elements of what you would want in a proper centre forward, both defensively and attackingly.
Yeah, like a young Victor Anatibi. Yeah, but no, seriously. What I'd say about him, and every game has been building pressure.
Yes.
So every time he goes on the pitch, he's facing more pressure than what he did in the previous game, isn't he? Because obviously he's not scored and he's got a 30 million price tag and there's been question marks. So last night I thought he was... I was trying to think of a word. He was strong, he was committed, he was quick, he was clinical when he got the opportunity. There was a bit of a Nias type sort of letting the ball behind him. There was one bit where he fought about 3 players on the halfway line, I think was that in the second half, and he ended up getting a foul where there was absolutely no way he should have won that ball. He posed a threat, he enabled us to break for him deep by carrying the ball further up the pitch and relieve the pressure on our defence. And I think if he'd have landed from the Planet Zog last night at Goodiosn and somebody said, yeah, that lad's not scored all season, you would have gone, what? Yeah. You would be saying, surely he must have done when he's considered his game time. And the other good thing was, and people have said about his off the pitch stuff, is that he was quite popular. He's obviously quite popular because everybody went to when he scored, didn't he? He's obviously, there's a lot of affection for him. I just thought he was, it's as good a centre forward display you've seen at Goodiosn for a long time off an individual player. I thought he was superb. Still a little bit raw, but even before his goal, I was thinking, I would kick on a bit if he scores a goal. But before the goal, he'd been a threat, hadn't he? He'd had a good shot saved, hadn't he? I think sometimes I like to see him place the ball rather than blast it.
He does have a tendency to have one type of effort.
I think he got lucky yesterday, though he scored. It went through to Bravka, didn't it, I think? And sometimes, it was like the one at Anfield in the league, where sometimes as a striker, if you've got a one-on-one, or sometimes look to place it and look up and place it rather than just trying to hit it.
You would hope that the first goal, and now that's that relative monkey, if you like, is off his back.
Yeah.
He would have the confidence and relax in front of goal to maybe start placing shots.
Yeah. He's playing a percentages, just get on target. But sometimes as he develops, I think it's far more productive. I mean, if you can do that, a player who was like that 20 years ago was Emileski. He was a similar type of player in some respects, is that he didn't score the goals that he should have done because I think half the time he blasted it rather than, definitely placed it into the corner. And I think, I thought he was excellent. Interesting selection issue for Carlo. He may... I know it's got 2 weeks now, haven't we, to the next game. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's been playing very well, mate, talk about him. And it's good that you've got three forward players. Different types of players in some respects, but all have got pace and hopefully now goal scoring power between the three of them.
We've seen, Adam, all 3 of them play from the start in one game this season, if memory serves me. That was at Newcastle over Christmas. Do you think that's something that Carlo can use on a more regular basis? Do you think there's in his system, can he play Kean, Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison all from the start as he did?
Can he? Yeah, because I think Richarlison is flexible enough that he can play out wide. Should he? I don't think so, because I think from what we've seen of Richarlison over the last month or so, I think you're wasting him if you put him out wide now. I think, he is playing his best football when he's playing through the middle with Calvert-Lewin. And I think the thing that impressed me most about Kean yesterday is he had to fill that sort of Richarlison role, which is, Carlo Ancelotti said a lot about what he wants Calvert-Lewin to do. He wants him to stay more central, don't run the flanks as much, get yourself in the box as much as possible. So that's meant that Richarlison's had to drop off a little bit more, be that sort of creative link between the midfield and the attack. Almost
like an old school number 10, not a modern number 10, but
Yeah, and I think Moise Kean filled that role quite well yesterday. We often saw him, like that moment that Gav was talking about in the second half where he dropped off toward the halfway line, held off 3 players, and if one of them hadn't fouled him, he would have been away and he would have been able to play Calvert-Lewin in. that's the kind of thing. I probably wouldn't have expected that from Moise Kean, going by his performances so far up until this point. But I think he filled that role really, really well. And I think the one moment that impressed me most about him was a couple of minutes before he scored. He won a header from a Newcastle corner at the front post,
header, yeah,
and then chased the ball 80 yards all the way back to force Newcastle to play it back to their goalkeeper. And I think the keeper ended up hitting it out for an Everton throw, and that got him a massive round of applause from the Everton fans. And those kinds of things will help his confidence massively, as well as putting the ball in the back of the net. And I don't think it's any surprise to me that, about 2 minutes later, he did actually score.
But, and I totally take that point, and I totally agree. Although, Gav, would you say that as he matures and he understands more tactically about the game, and bearing in mind that he's clearly his engine is he's not yet ready for him to play 90 minutes, he will learn when to pick and choose those types of runs.
I've just took the words out of my mouth. Sometimes you don't want to see a striker running 80 yards up the pitch, do you? Are we concerned that being at the club, 5 months, that he's not quite ready to play 90 minutes? Is that a concern?
Well, go on, Ad. Go on.
He wasn't exactly a regular for Juventus last season, was he? He's not exactly been a regular, especially in senior football, ever, really. Especially with adapting to the Premier League as well. I'm not too concerned on that front, personally, anyway.
No, I was just saying, I think the time he's got to preserve his fitness to over 90 minutes. You don't want to be running 80 yards runs every 5 minutes, do you? And I think part, as you say quite rightly, part of that getting, whatever you say, match fit or whatever the phrase is these days, is, especially for the striker, is knowing when to run and when not to run, and conserving the energy at the right times.
Because he's a very explosive player.
I mean, there was one run, I think in the second half, where he picked the ball right of our area and he ran for 40, 50 yards at top pace.
Yeah.
And
then his pass at the end looked a bit tired, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think you can see why there was a bit. Last night was the first time, and there's been patches. Last night was the first time seeing him where you could see why he was spoken so highly of. There was
an excitement last night, wasn't there, about the way he was playing.
Yeah, and if you get that at Goodiosn, everybody benefits. The crowd gets up for it, and the players get up for it. And I think it's just going back to my original point, interesting conundrum for Carlo. Bear in mind what Ad said is that you've got one of your three really can't. You're not getting the best out of him if you're playing in wide left in the midfield four.
I think, and the problem, the problem is theoretically is, assuming Richarlison's fit for Watford in 10 days, whatever it is, all three are loosely in form. Calvert-Lewin can't stop scoring. Richarlison was scoring when he was in the team, and now Keane's opened his account, and confidence will be sky high.
And bear in mind, Keane's a young lad who's come off to a standing ovation, whatever. Is the best by the way he's off for the next game. It's just an interesting one that I'll test Carlo's powers and experience and management, really. I
don't know.
Left field one. Was you playing as a front three in a 4-3-3?
Well, I was going to say, when we were discussing whether you could play them, obviously Carlo's made it clear that defensively 4-4-2. Yeah. But obviously that does morph and transform into something a little bit different. Can he play in a system where Richarlison plays in one of the wide positions defensively because he will do that work, and then when we get the ball, it becomes a three. But then you're going to have to drop. Are you dropping Bernard for him to play on the left? Not on last night's performance. Are you dropping Walcott, who's
a similar type of player to the other three we've spoken about?
And Walcott, undoubtedly for me, relishes, and you get more out of him when the manager, whether it was Marco for certain periods last season or on one or two occasions, and Carlo now saying you're cutting into the middle, almost becoming and joining. Yeah, you feel like you're getting more out of Walcott playing.
I get that.
Inside forward.
You suspect that would be an option if you have Gomez and Gavin in the midfield.
That was going to be my exact point.
I think maybe we've not got the right balance in the three. I'll draw comparisons with Liverpool, who have like a front three, don't they? Yeah. But their middle three tend to are a proper like flat three in some respects. They'll move up and down, won't they? I don't think we've got a three like that at the moment until Gomez and Gavin come back. But it's certainly one for the future, and not a bad problem to have, that we've got three players in good form. We've still got to get the rest of the team scoring. I think I was looking last night, and this cost us, is I think since we beat Wolves, which is now 4 months ago, have we only scored 3 in one Premier League game against Chelsea?
Right.
Which is
just that killer instinct. Almost, isn't it?
And it's getting to.
Is that the payoff then? When I was I've written down here 22, and 19. Loads of potential in those 3 lads, and we're already seeing what they can offer at this stage in their careers at the Premier League. But of course, with young players, you inevitably get rough edges, ups and downs.
But that's all right at the moment, because one of them does. You can play the other 2 then, can't you? You know, so.
Or are you suggesting it needs to be? You're not just looking at the 2 that do start. You're looking at other players, the other creative players to be at chipping in.
I just don't think we need to get more goals from the rest of the team, don't we? I know. It's all right saying Kean scored last night, which was great, but that's about 12 of the last 13 goals that we scored with Richarlison and in the Premier League, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah.
But Kean scored last night, and he's replacing Richarlison, isn't he?
Well, this was the issue we had last season, wasn't it?
Yeah, with Sigurdsson and Richarlison, wasn't it, last season? It's getting goals off the middle 4. I mean, you're looking at that last night. How many goals has Bernard going to get for you this season? Theo, Delph and Schneiderlin aren't going to. I mean, Schneiderlin's not scored for us for 3 years, and I think Delph's scoring ratio. Is
Bernard the next highest scorer behind? Behind Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison.
2 Premier League goals. I think have we had? Is he Kean the 8th player to score for us in the Premier League? It's getting, and also getting like a little bit more from set pieces. Though strange enough, both centre halves were unlucky last night. And Luca Dean's goals has dried up completely, haven't they? And based on his free kick, he's not scoring from a free kick anytime. Anytime soon. So it's good that the front 3. Yeah, totally agree. But we need what cost us last night. Perhaps is not the absence of a goal from another part of the pitch, but that could have taken it to 3 or even 4-0.
Just before we move on to the less enjoyable things to talk about,
you sure?
I think it is important we maybe do a little bit more focus on Calvert-Lewin. 10 league goals for the season, into double figures. I mean, he would be in the run, and I appreciate it's not particularly a badge of honour, but in terms of looking at standout players this season, he would be in the running, wouldn't he? Surely for consistent of performer in a very tough season.
Yeah, I'd say he'd be leading it for me at the minute. If you're looking at the whole season, I think maybe Yerry Mina came close up until about a month ago, but Calvert-Lewin's kicked on a little bit more. I think by the time the end of the season comes, Mason Holgate might have a bit of a shout for that kind of award. But at the start of the year, we all knew what was holding Calvert-Lewin back, and it wasn't any sort of work rate or any of his physical attributes or anything like that. It was just in terms of can he put the ball in the back of the net on a consistent basis, and he's come through some rough patches over the last couple of years, and he is now pretty consistently putting the ball in the back of the net. And obviously there is improvements, and Carlo keeps talking about those improvements. He needs to stay central a little bit more. He needs to take more of his chances when they present themselves to him. But to be already in double figures in January, we've still got months of the season to go. It kind of frees him up in a way. This is his best ever return for Everton. He doesn't look like he's going to get dropped anytime soon. This is his chance now. From now until the end of the season, go and see how many goals you can get.
How many do you think he should be targeting in the league? Really, 14 games left.
14 games left. If he doesn't get over 15, then I think he'll be a little bit disappointed from now until the end of the season. And if he ends up with 15 goals this season,
that would put him. Gavin might be able to back this up. If he scored 15 league goals, that would put him in terms of the last 10, 12. 13 years of Premier League football for the club. Yeah. That would put him probably be only second to Rom in single seasons. Yeah.
I think Rom's first one was 17, wasn't it? And I think he offers a little bit more to the team than what Rom did when he first started. Yeah, I was having hundreds of the Premier League appearance for us last night. So on my very iffy stats, I think he's got 10 in 22. So that makes him his first 78 Premier League appearances, 11 goals. Last 22 Premier League appearances, 10.
Wow.
Or 21 maybe, because I don't think he scored on it.
So in terms of a metric to kind of, if you wanted to kind of quantify the progression.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's just a sudden bit, and that's what sometimes happens with strikers. I mean, what I like, that was a great finish last night. I mean, it was a Richarlison-esque against Brighton, wasn't
it?
It
Was a bit
in
of a
some
goal out of
respects,
nothing.
like with not, maybe not as sort of intricate, but and he had that shot that hit the post, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which was it was a good shot. That he was unlucky there. What are like a couple of things there? There was obviously a few old times saying about like sort of Graham Sharp when he first broke through 1981-82. Our new life president of former players, whatever it is. Yeah. And the point I raised then was that then teams play 4-4-2. So if you were a young striker coming in, you were invariably playing off somebody who was probably a little bit more experienced than you, who could take the weight off you, show you the ropes on the pitch, all that type of stuff. And Graham Sharp had a fella called Peter Eastown. He was great with his back to goal and all that, And the problem we said with Calvert-Lewin, and young striker, if you're playing 4-2-3-1, you're the sole striker. There's nobody to take the weight off your shoulders. So you've got to score goals and run the channels, all this type of stuff. You've got nobody to take the weight off you. And it's no coincidence that he's kicked on completely since we've been playing 4-4-2, and he's had a second striker playing with him. And I think that's helped him. I like to think he would have kicked on anyway because confidence through scoring goals. But I think that's been the key thing in his development. And I'm like Kean and Richarlison. I'm being really impressed by him, and also he's scoring goals that you want to see strikers score. Gary Lineker always says, doesn't he, that the most important weapon in the striker's armoury is knowing when to attack space. But 9 times out of 10, the ball won't reach there. But the 1 time out of 10, jackpot. And that's what he started doing far more effectively for me inside the penalty box. Like for the goal on Saturday, where it was a flick on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He'd started his run before the ball had reached the vacant area.
I think the two at St James's Park.
Yeah,
as well,
Newcastle, I was going to say. And that's something that he's obviously developing and learning when to do that, which is something that was lacking, I think, in the first half of the season, where I think there was a couple of times against Man City at home where he was reacting to things in the area. I think there was a couple of times against Man City where Ederson saved, the ball came out, and he reacted too late. And by the time he got there, the ball squirted off and went wide. Where a good experienced striker will say, "I'm going to run it just in case he parries the ball," and then you're there to knock it in. And I think that's something that he still needs to develop, but he's showing signs of learning, and that's obviously contributed to his goal count. So it's really, looking at him, you're thinking, if you do really well, he's still 22, is he? Yeah. This guy could be the limit for him because he's got all the attributes of a mobile striker. Left foot last night, very good in the air, as we know. Both in the penalty box from headers, but flick-ons and all that type of stuff. And you're thinking, if you keep your head and your coach right and you show the right mentality, then you could have a very long and profitable career. Hopefully for Everton.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here. Right, we move on, and we sadly move on to 94th minute and 95th minute of last night's game. Everton conceded 2 goals, as I'm sure you all are very well aware. Adam, why, how, who's to blame, what's to blame? How did it come to that?
I think we'll be wondering how it come to that for weeks and months in the future. But we've got a piece which will be up by the time this podcast is out, and we've analysed each of the Newcastle goals. I got given the luxury of looking at the first goal.
Dear that, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't help but look past Jordan Pickford, to be honest. When the corner comes in, Pickford challenges Lejeune for the ball, and he flaps at it because Lejeune, he's a big lad challenging him for the ball. But because he flaps at it, Mason Holgate spots the danger and drops back to the goal line, just in case Lejeune wins the header and maybe tries to score. There's a fella at the back post, Fabian Schär, I think it is, who's now in about 10 yards of space to flick it back into the area where Lejeune is stood, where Mason Holgate should have been.
So unmarked.
Unmarked in that zone, in about 5 yards of space. And you can't account for the finish. It's a really good finish from him in the end to get that overhead kick on it. But yeah, it all stems from Pickford missing that first cross, and then zonal marking doesn't help for the fact that Schär's got so much time to put the ball back into the box at the back post. But Yeah, for the first goal at least, I can't help but look at Jordan Pickford thinking he needs to be stronger with that cross into the box. And how many times have we said that at this point?
We need to have a screen like they have on Monday Night Football here, don't we? You can it's all that out. Yeah, if we can. Yeah. What can you say apart from that? Well, what I would say though is what contributes. Bit of stick going about substitutions last night.
Go on, Gav.
Expand.
All right then.
I think we need to.
I'll pick up on one sub, which and I'm not making him out as a scapegoat. Far from it, but I think perhaps it was indicative. He brings on Oumanias.
Yeah.
Now the base kind of expectancy from Oumanias is he'll run, and he'll make life difficult for however long he's on the pitch for the opposition defence because he'll be in the face.
Yeah.
He'll harry them, impress them, etc., etc. I didn't really feel like that we got that from him, and I felt like it wasn't just him, and I'm stressing this, but it felt like the injection of tempo that Carlo was hoping to bring to the team in the final 10 minutes.
Didn't happen.
I felt like there was actually a loss of momentum.
Yeah, well, there was two things. He did the first time he touched the ball, I think he could give a foul away, didn't miss control on the halfway line. The second time, he wasn't through on goal, but he had the good. He had the one-on-one, didn't he?
That was in the 92nd minute,
Yeah,
2-on-2.
Yeah.
Had the chance to play it to Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, and in the end, did he take a bigger touch, and did that lead directly to the
He took a
corner?
big touch, and
So so I was just wondering the logic, and lots to follow me here is he's brought Kean on and moved Walcott over, and then replaced Walcott with Niasse. Well, the easiest thing was just replace Niasse with take Kean off and replace Niasse. Saves yourself. I'm not sure if the saves a substitution. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just trying to think about this in my head in terms of Kean was obviously ready to come off after 70 minutes. With the best will in the world, did he think he wanted to limit the amount of time he has to rely on Niasse?
Why is he on the bench then?
Good question. Why not bring Gordon on?
Why is he on the bench?
Yeah.
You know, if you're putting someone on the bench, but you want to limit the time that they're on the pitch because of his well-known limitations, well, then put him on the bench then. You know, especially as we know, his future is it's not happening in Everton, isn't it? And I just thought we made two substitutions there that actually just one would have done, and the other one, which I think Bernard obviously played really well last night. I think he's played 190 minutes for us since the opening day. I know he's been injured. He's clearly a player who struggles to last the pace.
Yes.
As does Walcott.
I don't think Bernard looked well. Maybe like if you're a manager and you're looking at players a bit more closely, you see different things. But you know, from just someone sat in the stands, I didn't think Bernard looked like he was tiring. In any sort of way. Maybe. I was quite surprised when Bernard, who I thought was our most creative player.
Yeah.
Even at 2-0, I was a bit surprised to see.
Any sort of indication into how he was tired in that he opted not to run across the pitch and be sub, but go off by the touchline and meander around. And
is that not the new rule
that's
that they've got to do now?
But
okay.
Yeah. And also he gets a nice round of applause.
Of course,
And what's not to like with that? But I just thought that once Kean went off, we just lost a little bit of. I think Coleman came on, didn't he? And we ended up Coleman went back into Zeeby.
I'm not really surprised by that though. Like we've played that a few times under Ancelotti, haven't we?
Yeah,
and it's worked under him as well.
Yeah, it's just we lost our. Considering 70 minutes was all about momentum and style of play, and playing as an outward as a 10. Outfield players. The blend was right. I just thought after that substitution we lost it. And they never threatened, but they had a little bit more of the ball. And we just didn't. We lost that final third threat that we'd had, and ultimately that followed through to the first goal, which was I was gutted about it. We lost a clean sheet.
I was thinking that. Yeah,
second best record after Liverpool, isn't it? Since the start of last season, a home clean sheet. So now there's another stat disappeared. But I just thought at the time, okay, I didn't think what was going to happen after that. The second goal was a shambles, wasn't it?
Well, indeed it was. I think my biggest issue for the second goal was that we had the ball.
Yeah.
We restart the game. The possession's ours. There's less than, as it transpired, less than a minute on Simon Hooper's watch, and we give it straight back to them.
Yeah.
It was almost like being a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I was likening it to the now infamous Bournemouth game. The 3-0 where But we scored, haven't we, in the 95th minute to make it 3-2. So they had the ball from the kickoff. But so we had sort of 30 seconds to last. But they had the ball. Last night it was 30, 45 seconds to last, and we've got the ball. And we ended up, we've seen it. I've only seen the goal once live, once on the telly. Just a little anecdote last night. I only read it, but a fella walked out about 5 minutes in the end from behind the press box and said, I think he was just saying, I'm going. Says I can't stand the pressure. Little did he know, he said it with some irony and sarcasm, And little did you know, or maybe you did know,
Little did everybody in the press
and the
box
second goal was
everybody had written.
I mean, you could talk an hour, can't you, about it's kicking it back to them, super free kick.
But then, even at that point, Gav, and that's another thing that I'm struggling with. Even giving it back to them, right? Why have you done that? Okay, it's gone. Even after conceding a free kick, right? Forget it, it's gone. There's a free kick about on the halfway line.
Yeah.
Still got plenty of opportunity to deal with the ball. It was pumped to the side of the box almost. It wasn't a
great free kick, was it, at the end of the day?
They played it short.
But two players get caught underneath the ball, and then that was essentially game over. Was it Fernandez as a shot, and then just all hell
Fernandez hits the post, coming out to Hayden. And obviously that infamous still, which you've probably seen on social media, and I'm sure many of our listeners have seen it, at the moment of the goal going over the line, it's just like a chaotic scene of
we've got two players off the pitch.
Mina and Holgate off the pitch. They'd flung themselves in an attempt to stop Fernandez's shot, but Pickford is actually behind the line because in anticipation of Hayden's volley coming through that sea of bodies, he'd already dived, but somehow his dive had taken him behind the goal line.
He dove diagonally. So he ended up crossing the line, but then obviously Calvert-Lewin blocked it with his head, didn't he, in the end?
And Delph was playing players on, wasn't he, and stuff. I'm not sure. Pickford, he's a little bit of a Marmite character at the moment, isn't he? There's some people, I still think, he's decent and stuff, but last night brought into focus there's a body of supporters, probably, I fully understand, do think that actually not great. And I was looking at that, I think, does a top class keeper leave themselves? I mean, there's probably people better qualified than me to talk about it, to leave, a yard behind the goal. Because if he's on his line, he's saving the ball, isn't it? Because it went straight at him. The ball only went over the line because he's behind the line. It wasn't if the ball went in the corner and he had to dive for it. And I didn't think that. It just looked wrong. You don't often see that, do you? And he didn't cover himself in glory, though others may disagree. And it was just a shambles of a shambles.
Shambles of a shambles.
A shambles of a shambles. Yeah, It was an omni shambles, as the phrase goes.
Indeed.
Though it did give me the chance for an opportune stat.
Go on.
Is the last time there was goals at Goodiosn from the same team in the 94th and 95th minute was against Birmingham. We scored 2 against Birmingham to win the game 3-1 in November 2007. And who was the Birmingham manager?
Steve Bruce.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it wasn't
on the Lee Carsley scored the screamer.
Lee Carsley and James Vaughan. And that's still. In fact, we didn't even have to talk about that goal, really, did you? You just got a picture of the still. There it is.
It's almost akin to that great still that somebody did from that scene in Manchester City Centre a couple of years ago.
Where the fella's just
That's what came into my mind when I saw it last night.
Or the other one, which I always thought was a great one, was when we beat Arsenal 2-1 in 2016, where both goalies are in behind the goal line. In our
even the one where we played United and all three of our centre backs are on the floor, on top of each other.
Oh,
so we've had a few. We've had a few of them.
But that one last night was the most serious, wasn't it? It was just it was an omni shambles. I just hope, and I think it's good that we haven't got a game on Saturday. By the way, I think it'd be good to give people time to get out the system. I don't think Martinez that season was the same after, because. Like last night, we could have gone 8th or whatever, or 7th. When we Bournemouth, if we won that 3-2, we would have gone sort of 6th or something like that. And we never seemed to recover after that game. It was just always in the background. Even beat them in the FA Cup late on the season, and that didn't eradicate the pain after all. And I just hope that we react better
at Watford. Tricky game.
Well, a tricky game. Again, on a ground that I don't think we've done that well at.
No, tell me about it.
And I think... Well, I've been there 3 times, 3 wins. And I think...
You going February the 1st?
No, I don't think so. Yeah,
we need to just drag him there.
Yeah, if you want to pay
Chuck him in the booth.
It was a long time ago, that, though. No, seriously, I think it's good that we haven't got a game on Saturday. I think if we give time to just recruit and think about things differently. And it was, as you say, it was just... What can you say? Just show that picture. Says it all.
Still not won a league game when there's been no Richarlison. 5 now. Which is fingers crossed his knee is suitably healed in time for the trip to Watford on February the 1st. Just before we do conclude this edition of the podcast, just want to get the lads' thoughts on, Gavin mentioned it early on in the pod, a victory would have put us 8th and really firmly in the battle for the Europa League. 30 points from 24 games. Continue that points per game average, that'll take us to somewhere between 47, 48. Last season, that only would have been good enough for 12th.
Yeah.
But this season, different, similar points total with that, because the league's so tight.
Yeah, but they reckon if you carry on, 56 might get you fit.
Wow.
Something like that. Only Everton could get 72 and finish 5th, you know what I mean? I think if you look at Chelsea, I think they're 36 from 23, something like that, and I think if you factor it through, 56, 57... Yeah, it was. For all I'm saying, last night is not a season-ending result, is it? It would be nice to get the extra 2 points, but we're still in the mix. I mean, and it's about the reaction, isn't it? And I think there's all to play for. As we seen last week when we were talking about the accounts, as what Sashi was saying in the general meeting, European football is pretty important for our finances and the prestige as a club. So. It's still on. It's still on, to be honest with you. Just last night, the extra 2 points may have helped. But I think we're capable of getting to... I think we get 50, capable of getting 56.
And add, we were saying before 94th minute, my God, from the day Marco's final game, we were 18th. We go to 8th, a jump of 10 places in what? 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever it is. Incredible. It would have been, I mean, there's obviously been significant progress in a points haul from Duncan and Carlo in that period, but that would have felt like a real kind of, well, the season's on it. We've properly got an opportunity. Yeah,
well, it would have been a big turning point if we'd have won, but I don't think it's similarly a massive turning point that we didn't win.
No.
As much as that does feel like a defeat, it wasn't. We have drawn that game with still only 1 league loss under Ancelotti. Out of 6 league games with him now. I think that's a really good record, and I think if we can focus on these sort of positives, it's not every game that we're going to be conceding 2 goals in the 94th and 95th minute. If we can keep honing in on those sort of positives that we saw in those first 94 minutes of the match, Ancelotti keeps working with them on the training pitch, as he's now going to have 10 days to do before the next game, and then he's going to have a winter break as well to get working with them. We'll have injured players coming back. There's still a real possibility. We are still in this fight, as Gav's saying. There is still a real possibility that if we can continue the kind of points haul that we got under Duncan and Ancelotti, there's no reason to suggest that we couldn't end up finishing 7th, 6th. Why couldn't we aim that little bit higher? Obviously, yesterday's result was a disappointing one, but as Gav said, it's not exactly a season ender.
No, and we spent the first half of the podcast talking about how well we played in the first.
Absolutely.
And, that performance is probably better than, I would say, most top half of the table teams, apart from the obvious couple of teams, have probably played in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I just thought we were excellent, we were smart. And I think Carlo, you don't get to where he is in management, hammering the players, do you, for the last 2 minutes. He'd be focusing on the... be reminding them how well they played for 94 minutes, and don't do the last. Get yourself organised, lads. Better. And I think lots of positives from last night, and I don't think we should forget that. Although hearing the crowd behind us at the end, I'm not sure they saw it that way. Yeah. Understandably,
understandably indeed. Yeah. Excellent, chaps. Thanks for your company. Excellent, as always. Thank you for listening. Hopefully we'll get back around the table later in the week. Of course, no game to preview this weekend, as the Blues, of course, messed up any FA Cup dreams, but we won't talk about that. But we'll still get back around the table to discuss plenty of ongoings at the club, and of course Friday will mark 1 week until the deadline day, so that will be firmly on the agenda, whether there'll be any business at all, comings or goings. So thank you very much. You've been listening to the Royal Blue Podcast.
The Royal Blue Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.